So, the revolving door of your mind. Hmm. What in the world could that be? That's what I asked myself. Well, my purpose for this presentation um, is to uncover the gift of one's inner courage. Because our theme for the year is comfort, or courage over comfort. And so many times we default to, oh, I'm so comfortable, safe where I am. Even though I'm not happy about it, I'm comfortable. It's like when someone tells me they're bored. Oh, really? Okay. All right. So be bored. I find there's nothing, that isn't one of my go-tos. You know, if I don't want to do something, I say no. If I do, I say okay. But in between, it's kind of a no man's, woman's, person's place, you know? So this gift of inner courage, I have a question for you. How do we access this inner courage? We say we have courage. We want to be stronger in our pursuit of the better life for us that we know is here. Well, my answer, quite simply, is get off your seat of comfort. Get off your seat of comfort. And the first step is to take the first step. Let's always take the first step. And it's so easy to say that and to stay in our comfort place, in our seat of, this is what I've always done, and how I've always done it, and what I've always expected. Am I the only one? And I know this stuff. I've studied this stuff. I've even taught this stuff. And yet, the default will kind of pull me back to that seat of comfort if I'm not conscious of it. It's comfortable. It's familiar. The old ways. These patterns of thinking and behaviors. They didn't just happen today. They've happened since birth to now. Some are very, very deep. Some we don't even know we have down there deep. And so that is one of the uncoverings that happens in this teaching, is to get us past our old patterns, our old comfort zones that keep us maybe victimized in some way. If you're like me, there are those moments of complacency. I love complacency. I love that word. When you settle for situations in life that you feel will not change or get better. Complacency. Well, this ain't true. This ain't true. I call this stinking thinking. You're thinking stinky thoughts. Humor's good, isn't it? Yeah, stinking thinking. And I also call this behavior boring. It's downright boring. So why is there a tendency to stay put in this place I call Dullsville? Why do we go to Dullsville? It's the fight or flight mechanism that we all know about. We have a tendency to freeze when we get into a place of uncertainty. It's a belief place where? In our mind. It's not a real place. It's only in our mind. And guess what? You placed that fear belief in your mind. Or you said yes to something that happened that created an experience that caused you to feel fear. And it's deep. I'm not dismissing it, because we all have our feelings. And we're all loving them on their way, the ones we don't want anymore. When there is even a minor shift or a thaw in those frozen beliefs, when we're thinking, gee whiz, this is as good as it gets, You believe that? This is as good as it gets. This is all I can have. It's all I can do. Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo. I've been there. And when I ask myself that question, or that I say, is this as good as it gets? A shift happens for me. I begin to question. I begin to wonder. It's time for you to be your own self-critic at these moments. Not beat yourself up. Just say, oh, there's my default again. There's the place where I go for comfort. Well, you know what? It's time for a pivot. It's time for a pivot. I've had a great life. I've had a great life. There have been a few major pivots. But thanks to this teaching, I have a greater awareness of how to think about it. How to thank it eventually. And when those stinking thinkings appear, my inner courage, which is my inner knowledge, my inner wisdom of spirit, pivots back around so that I am able to realign with the truth of who I am. And also, it helps to evolve through me, evolve through you, evolve through all of us into even more goodness, possibility that I would not have been able to see or know had I remained comfortable. Now, fear. Many of us have heard the acronym, FEAR. False evidence appearing real. It's false. Fears are, what's out there is false in reality. And it's a sticky emotional glue. It gets stuck on you if you let it. Until you permit your courage to rediscover your greater truth. So what is the greater truth? What is this greater truth that I keep saying? Well, it's believing into more possibility. You see, when I mentioned I've had a good life, it's true, I have had. Past tense. Did you catch that? I have had a good life. Now, I could sit over here on my comfort seat and just say, oh, gee, I had a good life. Wasn't it great? But now, I had a good life. And that's true. But if you change the tense from had to have, I have a good life. I have a good life. I have good relationships. I have love. I have joy. There's a pivot happens in your mind that shifts how you think. It may not be immediately, but there's a shift that occurs, a little rumbling under your soil. I love the word shift. And it's a verb. Shift is a verb. And it means move or cause to move from one place to another, especially over a small distance. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much for a shift in your thinking, in your life. So to shift or pivot the tense that is used from I had, I was, I want, to I have, I am, and I will. Which one do you prefer? Present or past? So there's a call in our center right now to shift from the fear and to pivot into courage, which is into expanding our faith in ourselves, in our friends, and in the world even. Faith in yourself is that which is only yours. I can't give you that. You have to find that inner faith that is right there, already there. It's yours to do. But you have to believe that you belong in the goodness of this life. Do you think you do? I know I do. I belong here. I belong here. Well, how can this shift begin? Just in general. Well, I think by showing up here is a good way for each other. Showing up for your friends. And by being a little bit vulnerable. Ooh. Ooh. Vulnerable. Ooh. I got to show who I am. Ooh. In the 4 Pivots book that we're just completing for these first 2 months, 4 Pivots on page 134, it's called I Can See You Now. This is important. Quote, I suppose that the purpose of vulnerability in our relationships with others to not take each other for granted and show up in ways that matter. Vulnerability is like a portal to our humanity. When we open up, what flows out is the beautiful mess and confusion that makes us human. When that happens, we can see each other more clearly without the clutter of all the bullshit that we can carry around. I'm quoting. He writes further, we see our titles, degrees, positions, and authority to determine how we show up many times. And if we show up to form truly transformative relationships, we cannot skip vulnerability because it is the only way we really see each other. When we say I'm open and receptive, it means being vulnerable, even to receiving your good. Open to something better. I'm open to something. I'm vulnerable to have some greater experience. And you fill in that blank of love or joy or wealth, anything. Well, the result of that quote, I believe, is a greater sense of belonging in this life and how we do that. Belonging is a felt essence. We know when we feel we belong. It's a feeling. An inner knowing of, here I go, through a sort of revolving door into something different and maybe uncomfortable in my mind. Revolving is to move in a circle on a central axis towards greater ideas. Revolving is the potential to continually re-evolve you. The door goes around. Revolving door goes around. You step into it. You're evolving, but you revolve around. So your evolution is repeating. You got that? Does it make you dizzy? So what's the first thing we should do with this door? We must push the door. We must push the door. We must be mindful for it to revolve. Your intention activates the energy of the revolution. Ooh, like that, revolution. Which gives you cause towards something new. Intention, push, cause. The door starts moving. And that newness of life requires that you display the courage to push it, to push that, to give it a nudge. Well, I'd like to. Well, I want to. I don't know if I could. I'll push it. Oh, say that. Oh, push it. See? Has a whole new meaning, doesn't it? Oh, push it. There's a song, but I won't go into that. You can ask James later. So last week, Reverend Kathy Fernandez reminded us that that which we see is not a solid form of you and me, because we are intelligent energy entities. Energy entities. We're all energy. And there's more space between the molecules than there is solid form. So we're not solid form. What we're seeing is a reflection of the light, the energy of each other, one to the other. And she exampled that by the mirrored ball hanging right there. I love that talk. That was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So look it up, folks. Look it up. It was great. Well, I was thinking about her understanding of all that, and my mind was made aware of through something came across, probably the internet. That's how this works. There's 2 kinds of energy, potential energy and kinetic energy. Potential energy is holding on to something. It resides there, but it's there. It's like our potential in life. We contain it. It's within us, but we haven't given it the push. That's potential energy. Kinetic is the releasing and the active part of energy. It's the door going around. That's kinetic. Potential is right here. We have to give it a push. Like our life. We have to give it a push. And the good thing about the door, like our mind, it always moves in the direction of the push. The door has no volition of its own. It doesn't choose it. We get to push it. All right? So, I think it's time for a visual. And here we go. That's not me, but it could be. House lights down, please. Sound up.
I think there's some champagne in the icebox. Why don't you open it while I get dressed?
Okay. I don't think I've ever drunk champagne before breakfast before. With breakfast on several occasions. But never before.
Now, I've got a wonderful idea. We could spend the whole day doing things we've never done before. We'll take turns. For something you've never done, and me. Of course, I can't really think of anything I've never done. I've never been for a walk in the morning before. At least not since I've been in New York. I've walked up Fifth Avenue at 6, but as far as I'm concerned, that's still night. Do you think it counts?
Sure it counts. Now we're even.
Don't you just love it?
Love what?
Tiffany's. Isn't it wonderful? Do you see what I mean? How nothing bad could ever happen to you in a place like this? It isn't that I give a hoot about jewelry except diamonds, of course. Like that. What do you think?
Well,
Of course, personally, I think it'd be tacky to wear diamonds before I'm 40.
well, you're right. But in the meantime, you should have something.
I'll wait.
No, I'm going to buy you a present. You bought me one, a typewriter ribbon, and it brought me luck.
All right, but Tiffany's can be pretty expensive.
I've got my check and $10.
Oh, I wouldn't let you cash a check. But a present for $10 or under, that I'll accept. Of course, I don't exactly know what we're going to find at Tiffany's for $10.
One of my favorite parts of breakfast at Tiffany's was going through the door. It's like they did something that they had never done before they got to that door. She had never seen, well, she had seen 6 a.m., but it was always after a night out. So to get up in the morning and go on Fifth Avenue was a whole new experience. She gave it a push. And then she pushed that door. So I'm going to tell my push when I was younger. When I was in my 20s, a while back, I remember the first time I stepped through the doors like that and into an experience. And that experience was named iMagnet in San Francisco. It's a wonderland for my senses. It was just like, oh my God, look at all this. It's the smells, the beauty, the service. I had never experienced it. And I fell right into it. It was great. It was there that I discovered clothing for men is in a department labeled men's furnishings. Men's furnishings. And when one appreciates nice fabrics, you can walk up and say, oh, it has a nice hand, doesn't it? And it's always the back of the hand, because the fingertips aren't as sensitive to fabric as the back. Try it. It feels different. It's something different. It's the push. And I learned the value of a personal shopper, Ken. Where are you? Ken. We were talking clothes this morning. And my first was a gentleman named Jim Suter. Isn't that a great name for a man in haberdashery? Suter. But it was spelled S-O-O-T-E-R. But I always saw it as S-U-I-T. And he taught me especially how to receive a jacket. And the sound crew here knows, don't you? Will you help me with my jacket? After I'm mic'd, my hands go back like this. Boom, boom. And what they do is they slip the jacket upon your shoulder. And all you do is you just stand there. And they say, how's that, sir? And I say, well, what do you think? He says, well, it needs a pinch here. Okay, go ahead. Service. Service. Giving of good service. Rod. And I can't forget the fragrance department. Can I, Leo? That's where I learned all this. They had a beautiful fragrance department, all with beautiful blonde ladies from France, from Britain, Germany, all with those lovely accents, and all had a shade of blonde hair. And being in hairdressing at the time, I loved blonde hair. Still do. In my experience with one lady from France, I walked up to get a certain fragrance I had scratched and sniffed in a magazine. You ever done that? It was great after the fire. We didn't have any cologne, so you go, what? Oh, page 67. Oh, that looks good. I'll wear that today. It worked. It worked. So I walked up and I said, she says, may I help you? I said, what, pardon me? May I help you? I said, yes, please, I would like a fragrance. Ooh, which one? And I said, the Givenchy. She said, Givenchy. Oh, you mean Givenchy? So I had a little brush up in my French, you know. But the whole thing was done with such service and respect. And she didn't look down at me. She just, oh, you mean Givenchy? Of course, sir. You know, she was so service-oriented. So, and I appreciate that. And I've learned to be more an emissary for that. So I took that on. That was my push to be more service-oriented in all ways. And in fact, from all that, I discovered aspects of me, but little did I realize that the I Magnon experience, all of it, was the fertile soil that shows up here as Reverend GQ. Thank you very much. I have all kinds of names. I like that one. I had stepped into my happy place early on, one of beauty, of comfort, of care, and delicious aromas. I wondered what could be next. Tiffany's? Tiffany's, maybe. So, my friends, what's in your push future? It's good. Whatever you push, whatever's good for you, give it a push. Ernest Holmes tells us in the textbook on page 416, and I quote, if someone should ask whether or not God has any intention for him, the answer would be that the only intention God could have, if a man is an individual, and ladies, you are too, would be to let the individual alone to discover himself. Push. Push. And so, in closing, the revolving door of your mind requires of us more faith and more courage. Say so long to the fear that rusts the pivotal access to your wonderland. So to help you, I offer a new acronym for the word fear. Instead of false evidence appearing real, mine today is finally erase all resistance. Finally erase all let's say that. Finally erase all resistance. And so that is. Erasing what holds allows you the courage to lubricate the spiritual pivot to the revolving door of your mind. So let's give it a push, shall we? Let's give it a push. Move into where you belong with renewed appreciation and lots of love. Discover your I Magnon or Tiffany's. And when you do, what wonders await. I love you. Rich blessings. Namaste.